Shabbat Shalom. I just want to welcome everyone to the Sabbath Day Conference Call. This is Barbara, and I'm serving as your host today, and also Ellie is here as your co-host. We just want to welcome everyone, and we hope that you will go to our website to find out more about this topic today. This is the title, The Catholic Church Claims Seventh-day Adventists Keep the True Sabbath. And so why is Pope Francis promoting a day of rest? And is Saturday the true Sabbath? Is Sunday the true Sabbath? Let's see what the Bible says. Well, here's another one. You might have seen this. This was in a lot of Seventh-day Adventist material out on the web. And this here picture and quote was even from the Sabbath school lesson. Those of you that have Adventist background, you're familiar with this, but admitting the Catholic Church admits Seventh-day Adventists are keeping the true Sabbath. And this is from End Time News. And we've known for many decades, the Catholic Church doesn't hide it, that they changed Sabbath to Sunday. But we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that today. And here are just a couple quotes. There are a lot of quotes from the Catholic Church admitting they changed the Sabbath. But go ahead, Ellie.
If we consulted the Bible only, we should still have to keep holy the Sabbath day, that is Saturday, with the Jews instead of Sunday. And this is from a course in religion for Catholic high schools. Sunday is a Catholic institution and can be defended only by Catholic principles. From beginning to end of Scripture, there is not a single passage that warrants the transfer of weekly public worship from the last day of the week to the first. This is from the Catholic Press back in the August of 25th, 1900.
Okay, and I'm going to leave all these links below. There are a lot of links here. And this is a whole, there's pages and pages of the Catholic Church admitting in their catechisms and everything that they changed from Sabbath, Saturday to Sunday worship. So they admit that. Okay, well, why is the Pope promoting Saturday as a day of rest? Why is he saying Saturday is the true Sabbath? Maybe you've heard about this movie that Pope Francis did, and the title is A Man of His Word. And Pope Francis, A Man of His Word, is a rare co-production with the Vatican. And Pope Francis's ideas and his message are central to this documentary, which sets out to present his work of reform and his answers to today's global questions about death and so on, and the role of the family. Well, it looks like all good things that he is promoting. But I want everyone to remember that Pope Francis is the first Jesuit to become a pope. And those of you that have studied about the Jesuits, how they have entered the church, entered the Seventh-day Adventist church and all churches, and then they go up to the leadership level. But remember, Matthew says, wolves in sheep's clothing. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. And then this third Jesuit superior general says, we came in like lambs and we rule like wolves. So we know that Pope Francis is a Jesuit, and he took the Jesuit oath. And if you want to go and read more about the Jesuit oath, here's a link that you can go to. So, okay, back to this movie. He just looks like a man of peace and a man that wants to have good family and leader of the world religion. So let's see a little bit more about this. Pope Francis tells the world to keep the Sabbath. For years, people have been deceived and have broken the commandments of Yah. This is a quote. So the commandments of God in the early councils, the Sabbath was changed by man. This eye-opening clip from the Pope's new movie that was just released on May 18, 2018, titled A Man of His Word. In this clip, the Pope tells you what day is the Sabbath by referring to Genesis, where God rested on the seventh day. And then he states that we need to honor God, and it's a small thing to do. The Pope is telling everyone to keep the Jews' Sabbath, which is what God commanded. So that's a big surprise, to keep the Jews' Sabbath. Okay, and I want to just show a clip of this. He's going to be speaking this in his language, but it'll be translated on the screen.
Se vive con el acelerador puesto desde la mañana hasta la noche. Y eso arruina la salud mental, la salud espiritual y la salud física. Más aún, arruina y destruye la familia y por lo tanto la sociedad. El séptimo día descansó. Lo que los judíos tenían y tienen, ¿no es cierto?, los observantes, como sagrado cumplir el Shabbat. El sábado se descansa, un día a la semana, al menos eso, para la gratuidad, para dar culto a Dios, para estar con la familia, para jugar, para hacer todas esas cosas. No somos máquinas.
So we just watched that clip, and I'm going to go screen by screen and go through it so that we can read it together. On the seventh day, he rested. This is what the Pope said. And what the Jews followed and still observe was to consider the Sabbath as holy. And on Saturday you rest. On one day of the week, that's the least. Out of gratitude, to worship God. To spend time with the family, to play. To do all these things. We live with the accelerator down from morning to night. So this ruins mental health, spiritual health, and physical health. More so, it affects and destroys the family and therefore society. On the seventh day, he rested. We are not machines. Okay, so that was all from that clip, and it's surprising that he would promote the Jewish Sabbath as a day of rest. So here is a quote from the Times of Israel. Okay, Ellie.
Pope Francis really likes the Jewish Sabbath. This is a clip from this 2018 60 Minutes interview. Rabbi Shmuel Eliyahu, a leading Israel rabbi, states, "You probably won't believe this, but the Pope called on the inhabitants of the world to keep the Sabbath like the Jews," he said. "According to the Jewish press, it is unbelievable. Those who have decreed that we will not keep Sabbath now understand what the value of the Sabbath is."
Okay, so Pope Francis promotes Saturday Sabbath. Here's another article. This was in 2020.
The Pope is not supposed to advocate for the Seventh-day Sabbath. He is supposed to lead the movement of false worship, which meets on Sunday. At least, that picture of the Pope's role is what Ellen White, the great controversy, imprinted into the world view of Adventist. The article of Jewish Telegraphic Agency was based on a 2018 interview of Pope Francis by 60 Minutes. Although the taped interview is 2 years old, it went newly viral this week. thanks to a YouTube video shared by a Spanish Seventh-day Adventist channel. Because that Spanish Adventist channel discovered the original 60 Minutes interview with Pope Francis, it has suddenly gained the attention of people all over the world, and the Jewish Telegraphic Agency picked up the story. After all, it's news among the Jews when the Pope expresses sympathy and support for them and for all their traditions.
Okay, and the irony of this story, though, is the fact that it was the Seventh-day Adventists who publicized the Pope's endorsement of Sabbath on that Spanish channel. Adventists are imprinted with the belief that the Pope is the one who will change the Sabbath to Sunday, and the Pope is the world leader who will rally apostate Protestantism to follow his leadership as they all join hands in false worship, which would be Sunday keeping. So Adventists never imagined that the Pope would publicly endorse and promote the Seventh-day Sabbath. I am telling you, we would never think that is my heritage. So Adventists never imagined that the Pope would publicly endorse and promote the Seventh-day Sabbath. This idea goes against the fabric of Adventist eschatology. In fact, Rabbi Eliyahu even speculated to the Jewish press that he thinks the Pope may eventually lead the way to build a Jewish temple on the Temple Mount. And that would be no surprise because he is the leader of all the world's religions at this time. So the Seventh-day Sabbath, Adventists have been anticipating with dread the Sunday law that Ellen White said would come. So how ironic it would be if instead of a Sunday law, the religious powers of the world rallied around the law and encouraged a return to the Seventh-day Sabbath. This is really a twist. It just plays with your mind because we were taught so much about the Sunday law, that it would be enforced by the Pope, and here the Catholic Church is now promoting Saturday. But if you keep the lunar Sabbath, it's a little bit different. So what if neither Saturday nor Sunday is the biblical Sabbath? Rome changed the Sabbath. Is it Saturday? Is it Sunday? Well, at the Council of Nicaea, that's where the biblical calendar was set aside. So this is way before the Gregorian calendar, and this is at the time of Constantine.
The decision of the Council of Nicaea to set aside biblical calendation was merely confirmed by Constantine in royal edict. The bishops wanted to destroy any ties to Judaism. Anti-Semitism played a role, as can be seen in this statement by Constantine. Let us have nothing in common with this idolatrous people, that is the Jews. And this is from the History of the Jews, the Philadelphia, the Jewish Publication Society of America.
And we have done quite a few videos about this where the Jews were persecuted and commanded they couldn't keep any of their holy days. Here's more information from Constantine.
The Roman Empire Constantine, a former sun worshipper, professed conversion to Christianity, though his subsequent actions suggest the conversion was more of a political move than a genuine heart change. Constantine named himself Bishop of the Catholic Church and enacted the first civil law regarding Sunday observance in AD 321. On the veneration day of the sun, let the magistrate and the people residing in the cities rest, and let all the workshops be closed. In the country, however, persons engaged in agricultural work may freely and lawfully continue their pursuits, because it often happens that another day is not so suitable for grain growing or for vine planting, lest by neglecting the proper moment for such operations, the bounty of heaven should be lost. This is from Schaff's History of the Christian Church.
So, a mandated day of rest. Note that Constantine's law did not even mention the Sabbath, but referred to the mandated day of rest as the venerable day of the sun, and how kind he was to allow people to observe it as it was convenient. Contrast this with God's command to observe the Sabbath even during the plowing season and harvest, and that's Exodus 34:21. Perhaps the church leaders noticed this laxity as well, for just 4 years later, in AD 325, Pope Sylvester officially named Sunday the Lord's Day. In AD 338, Eusebius, the court bishop of Constantine, wrote, "All things whatsoever that it was the duty to do on the Sabbath, the seventh day of the week, we, Constantine, Eusebius, and other bishops, have transferred to the Lord's Day, the first day of the week, as more appropriately belonging to it." And I'll leave these links below for you. So on Saturday you rest. You heard the Pope say it, and there it is again. So here's another article, September 5 of 2018. And go ahead, Ellie.
The Pope, the day of rest is not to escape, but to thank God for life. The industry of distraction flourishes, and advertising paints an ideal world of a giant playground where everyone enjoys themselves. The dominant concept of life today does not have the center of gravity in activity and commitment, but in evasion. We need to reconcile ourselves to our own history. True peace is not to change our personal history, but to welcome it and enrich it. This is Vatican City, Asia News. Nowadays, while the industry of distraction is flourishing, man does not know how to rest according to God's commandment. He does not know how to look at reality and to say, life is beautiful. The Decalogue opposes rest as an escape from reality, with rest seen as a blessing of reality. The day of rest as thanks to Yah, or God, for his gifts, starting with the gift of life. For the topic of Pope Francis, reflection for today's general audience, in which he continued the cycle of catechesis on the commandments.
Okay, so the journey through the Decalogue, the Pope said, brings us today to the commandment on the day of rest. And remember over here, he said, on Saturday you rest. Okay, it sounds like an easy command to do, but it's a wrong impression. It really isn't easy to rest, because there is false rest and there's true rest, and this is all coming from the Pope, one of his statements. How can we recognize the true or the false rest? Today's society is thirsty for entertainment and holidays, the industry of distraction. Listen carefully. The industry of distraction, flourishing and advertising, paints an ideal world of a giant playground where everyone enjoys themselves. Man has never rested as much as today. Yet man has never experienced as much emptiness as today. The possibility of many things, cruises, trips, they do not give you rest. Okay, so note that Constantine's law, remember that changed the whole world, the whole worship system. Constantine's law did not even mention Sabbath, but referred to the mandated rest day as a venerable day of the sun, and how kind he was to allow the people to observe it as it was convenient. So it sounds familiar to me. Legislation crushes the Sabbath observance.
After the Edict of Nicaea, the apostolic Christians continue to worship by the lunar solar calendar. The Council of Laodicea was convened approximately 40 years later to enforce the acceptance of the Lord's Day in place of the lunar Sabbath. In order, therefore, to the accomplishment of her original purpose, it now became necessary for the Church to secure legislation extinguishing all exemption and prohibiting the observance of the Sabbath so as to quench that powerful protest against worship on Sunday. And now, the truly divine command of Constantine and the Council of Nicaea that nothing should be held in common with the Jews was made the basis and the authority for legislation, utterly to crush out the observance of the Sabbath of the Lord, and to establish the observance of Sunday only in its stead.
So the Roman Catholic Church admits to changing the calendar. We know this, but they've also changed more. The Catholic Church has always been very open about her role in changing the calendar. Modern Sabbatarians have assumed that Saturday was the Bible Sabbath, but the Catholic Church herself has never denied the role she played in rejecting the lunar solar Sabbath of the Bible and promoting instead worship on Dies Solis, the day of the sun. The Catholic Church abolishes the Sabbaths and feast days, and most of us have heard this quote before, but it tells you right out. So go ahead, Ellie.
T. N. Wright, Bishop of SaintAlphonsus Church, clearly states, it was the Catholic Church which made the law obligating us to keep Sunday holy. The Church made this law long after the Bible was written. Hence, said the law is not in the Bible. The Catholic Church abolished not only the Sabbath, but all the other Jewish festivals. And this is from T. N. Wright, Bishop of SaintAlphonsus Church in St. Louis, Missouri, in June of 1905.
Okay, the Catholic Church admits they abolished not only the Sabbath, but all the Jewish festivals. So, in the Pope, all the references from the Catholic Church, they say the Pope has power to change times, to abrogate laws, and to dispense with all things, even the precepts of Christ. The Pope has authority and has often exercised it to dispense with the command of Christ. Also, here's a question. Has the Catholic Church power to make any alterations to the commandments of God? Answer is, from the Catholic Christian sacraments, instead of the seventh day and other festivals appointed by the old law, the Church has prescribed the Sundays and holy days to be set apart for God's worship. And these we are now obliged to keep in consequence of God's commandment instead of the ancient Sabbath. So yes, and they even claim that the Pope is God on earth and is in the place of Christ and has power to change any law. So here are some more facts that I'll have Ellie go ahead and read.
The facts of history having been forgotten by most people, many Catholic writers have used planetary week terminology, that is, Saturday, which could be considered deceptive. It is also likely that many of the Catholic writers themselves were unaware of the full history behind the modern week. Catholic scholars have always known the truth, though. And the Roman Catholic scholar and apologist Patrick Madrid, he said in a radio interview on January the 5th, 2006, made a point of this. There was a distinct break between the Old Testament requirements, the rituals of the Mosaic covenant demands, dealing with the Sabbath worship and animal sacrifices and that sort of thing. And they wanted to show that Christianity was distinct from Judaism. It came from Judaism, but it was distinct from it. This is his comments. This obviously may have been a radio interview, it looks like here.
And Patrick Madrid states, the calendar that we follow, including Seventh-day Adventists, is not only a calendar that was devised by the Catholic Church, but also it is a calendar that's based upon the solar year, not the lunar year. And the Jewish calendar that was observed in the time of Christ follows a lunar calendar, which is several days short of the solar year. So the great irony is that even the Seventh-day Adventists themselves are not worshiping on exactly the same Sabbath day as the Jews at the time of Christ. So, and even the Jewish people know, we did a video about this, all the Jewish writings that prove the lunar Sabbath. There are many of them, but this is just one.
The Sabbath and the new moon, Rosh Chodesh, both periodically reoccur in the course of the year. The new moon is still, and the Sabbath originally was, dependent upon the lunar cycle. Originally, the new moon was celebrated in the same way as the Sabbath. And this is from the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia on holidays. And it shows here, you know, the Sabbaths according to the moon cycle, the first quarter, the full moon, the third quarter, and then back again to the new moon.
Thank you, Ellie. So it bears repeating, Christians at the time of the calendar change were not confused over Saturday being the Sabbath. Everyone knew that Dies Saturni had recently been moved from the first day of the week, of the pagan week, to the last day of the pagan week. And while Sabbato was the seventh day of the Jewish lunar solar calendar, which no one in power wished to be associated with. So again, these were two different days on two distinct calendar systems. The Sabbath was on the Creator's calendar, as Ellie explained, going by the phases of the moon, and then the Constantinian calendar had the pagan symbols for each day, starting out with Sunday and moving Saturn day to day 7 for the Jews to have a 7-day worship.
It was the Catholic Church which has transferred this rest to the Sunday in remembrance of the resurrection of our Lord. Thus, the observance of Sunday by the Protestants is an homage they pay, in spite of themselves, to the authority of the Roman Catholic Church. This again was Monsignor Louis Segura, plain talk about the Protestantism of today. He quoted this back in 1868.
So is this about allowing the planet to rest? Remember, that's what he said, Saturday, a day of rest. The 10 Commandments, we did this video over here on the right. You can see the picture of 10 Commandments changes and worship of Mother Earth, where world religions joined hands, and that all happened November 9, 2022. The world leaders gathered at Mount Sinai, not the biblical one, but another one there in Arabia, to put forward a prophetic inter-religious call to action called 10 Universal Principles for the Sea Change, I'm going to say. And they are seemingly trying to recreate the 10 Commandments that Moses received from Yah thousands of years ago. So it's all about worshiping Mother Earth and Mother Nature. And Pope Francis is basically blaming Mother Nature's unforgiving spirit for this challenge and crisis, and for even for the COVID pandemic. So it's all coming together with world religions joining hands about the earth, worshiping earth, and I think all this climate and environmental things are going to be about resting the planet, resting from work, resting all our machinery for all the exhaustion and the pollution in the air. Climate, here's another one, climate news. Let the planet rest. Pope Francis calls for sustainable living and canceling poor nations' debt amid climate crisis. He says, creation is groaning, the pontiff said, and that was in Tuesday, September 2020. So the COVID-19 pandemic has shown how the earth can recover if we allow it to rest. And remember, everything was shut down for months and a year. But if we allow it to rest, okay, and must spur people to adopt simpler lifestyles to help a planet groaning under the constant demand for economic growth, Pope Francis said on Tuesday in his latest urgent appeal to help a fragile environment.
What the Jews followed and still observe was to consider the Sabbath as holy. He says, on Saturday you rest, one day of the week. That's the least out of gratitude to worship God, to spend time with the family, to pray, and to do all these things. We are not machines, he said. And this was on this 2018 60-minute interview.
So the Roman Catholic Church admits Seventh-day Adventists keep the true Sabbath. And question mark there for those of you that can't see the screen. The SDAs need to know the truth. Seventh-day Adventists need to know the truth that Rome changed the lunar Sabbath to Saturday Sabbath and Sunday Sabbath. Rome changed the lunar Sabbath, and then they changed Saturday Sabbath to Sunday. So that's what this is all about. And our people from our churches or people that are keeping Saturday Sabbath have no idea. Saturday and Sunday are counterfeit Sabbaths. They are not the true day of rest. So it is impossible to find the biblical Sabbath via a Roman Gregorian calendar. Not knowing this, Saturday Sabbatarians have followed the Jews, and we assume that Saturday is a Sabbath and the day of rest because we follow the Jews. And this will show you Yah's calendar here lined up with New Moon Day, and there are 6 working days and a Sabbath. There's a Seventh-day Sabbath, 6 working days and a Sabbath, all regulated by the phases of the moon. And on a 30-day perfect calendar, as a calendar of Israel was, those phases always announced the Sabbath. So the Gregorian calendar of today was created by Pope Gregory XIII. And maybe you didn't know, it's only over 400 years old. The Gregorian calendar that's on our walls and in our tablets and planners. It is a deceptive solar-only calendar. And although the weeks are 7 days long, it is nowhere near the true calendar. The Creator's calendar in Scripture is always calculated by the sun, moon, and stars. There's a lot of material here today, and we have so much on our website where you can study out about the change with Constantine and the Catholic Church and the Jewish and historical writings that prove the lunar Sabbath is the original Sabbath. So please like if this is a blessing to you and share. And I was going to close the recording, but I think I will stay on for a minute.
You know, the fact that the Pope elevate the 7-day Sabbath, the Saturday 7-day Sabbath, it's a major problem. From my point of view, it's a proven fact that Jesuitism is present and it's in control of SDA Church. Because in the same time, SDA Church is preaching the Roman Catholic Church is the beast of Revelation 13, right? So that's an act, it's an attack, a direct attack against Catholicism. So why Catholic Church emphasize the good quality of SDA Church in observing the Saturday Sabbath? That is telling me that it's the same team here. Is no conflict. Where is the conflict? Because to understand the true Sabbath, we need to understand the context. So what is happening here regarding the Sabbath day is that if we understand the context when the true Sabbath was given by the Creator, it's an impossibility for Saturday. impossible, because it's a different context. And we have to remember something. They added the 7th day of the week in this new context. So when Constantine brought the 7th day of the week Sabbath, and you refuse to look back in the history to understand the concept, yes, apparently Saturday is the Sabbath, but it's not. It's an impossibility. The historical context doesn't allow us to accept Saturday as a Sabbath, because in the original context, every single day belonged to the monthly cycle, and it's totally different system. Absolutely. And if we want to worship the Father, the Creator, we need to follow the Sabbath, and the rule, the system that He created belongs to Him, not to the Vatican. Absolutely not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brother Gabriel. Look, time for maybe one more comment. Does anybody else have a comment about all this material and the counterfeit? It's a double counterfeit. It's Sabbath isn't Saturday and it isn't Sunday. Go ahead, Mike.
You're looking basically within the Jews in the first century with the Lunar Sabbath, as they followed, with the observance, with later on with Constantine, with the 7-day weekly cycle, as before it was from A to H, with Constantines II, roughly around 337 to 361 CE, with Hillel II, which was Jews of Palestine. Of course, they used that same 7-day weekly cycle of the Saturnalian, which was always based again on the sun, moon, and the constellations, as the fixed under the 7th day as well, which there you would get the Jewish calendar as you would see today. So with Hillel II being on the calculated on the fixed daily weeks outside of not the lunar Sabbath any longer, followed the same pattern as the Romans did with the solar-only calendar running on that 7-day week. That's why if you look in the constellations, even the Saturday they have today doesn't even line up half the time with the planet Saturn. So what we have today in the Pope is also trying to go based off of the Saturday again as well, and there's a lot of other writings, and this additional information comes from Britannica.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Do we have another comment today from our group here before I close the recording? And we can stay around for conversation too after the recording. Okay, I'm going to close